Borderlands style makeup looks sick. Really, all makeup done in this cartoonish cel shade style looks really amazing, and I promise it's not that hard to achieve. Truly, the hardest part is trying not to touch your face too much afterwards. As long as you have a good reference photo and decent products, cel shade style makeup is pretty easy and actually really great for accentuating your features, and it's pretty flattering. Hey, I'm Hendo, and this is how I do my makeup and also my wig for my Tannis cosplay. Let's shapeshift. Your main two products are going to be 1, whatever you use for the black line work, and 2, whatever you use for skin tone shading. Probably a contour palette with one color a few shades darker than you and one color a few shades lighter than you. For the black lines, I use a water-based body paint. This brand is called Vibe by European Body Art, which is an airbrush makeup, and that brand makes really good stuff. I'm not going to use an airbrush, I'm just going to dip my paintbrush in there. If you're not so good with a paintbrush, you can use an eyeliner pencil or liquid eyeliner. You can use a cream-based product with an eyeliner brush. Liquid latex is fine as long as it's skin safe. Can I use acrylic paint?
No!
Can I use a paint pen?
God, please, no!
Can I use a permanent marker?
No!
I know we all go goblin mode for cosplay, but you have to draw the line somewhere, ideally at protecting your skin. For contour and shading, I like to use this NYX Wonderstick Dual-Ended Cream Contour Stick. What a mouthful. Cream is easier for me to blend and build, and then I can use a powder contour on top to make it look a little more matte if it's shiny. Do your regular makeup however it makes you feel most confident. You're basically just going to make the contour more extreme and add some line work. I've made this handy chart to show you where I like to put the shadow and highlight and the lines. Also remember that most of this effect is accomplished by what you're wearing or your cosplay outfit, so it's not that serious. Just go for it. I'm just going to cover really quickly how I do my makeup. You can skip to the next section if you just want help with the line work. I'm starting with a bare face except for some moisturizer, and I'm going to do most of my normal eye makeup before putting contacts in. I just don't like how it feels when you're like putting eyeshadow on and you have contacts in there. It gives me the ick. I use the Urban Decay eyeshadow primer and then do a neutral eyeshadow base all over. Then I like to use black eyeshadow to really get in the lash line and sort of plan out where my winged eyeliner will go. Then the NYX Wonderstick I can just apply straight on and blend out with a concealer brush. I'm focusing on putting it right under my brow and on the sides of my nose, just bringing out that part where your face is naturally shadowed. I blend it a little, but not too much. I want it to look high contrast and paint it on. Then brown eyeshadow in the crease, black in the corner, and then black on the whole eyelid. Now I can add actual eyeliner, and with all of these steps done, I'm gonna go ahead and put in my green contacts. I typically use much brighter green contacts, ideally with a black outline to keep that cel shade theme going, but mine had apparently dried out and I couldn't get new ones in time. These are just like normal green contacts. Now I can finish the rest of my makeup. I'm darkening my eyebrows, extending the lengths on the outer sides and also the inner sides to make my eyebrows like a bit closer together. I have short eyebrows. After some foundation, I'm adding a bit of pink eyeshadow to the tip of my nose, cheeks, and under my eyes. Tannis is a bit of an insane scientist, so this adds to that kind of tired, hyper-focused look. I'm adding more contour to my nose and cheeks, then along my jawline and under my chin, blending it out, but again, not too much. I'm adding a really pale concealer to some highlight zones and then blending that out a little bit too. I add black eyeshadow to my bottom lash line and connect it to the corner to just sort of like make a cat eye effect. And a bit of highlight shimmer to the inner corners of my eyes, which just makes me look a little more alive and awake. I'm using my regular powder contour palette for my cheeks and just exaggerating them more than I normally would. Now it's time to cel shade. It's not actually cel shading, but it's just easier to call it that. And again, I'm doing the black lines with my water-based Vibe body paint. It dries pretty durably, but also because it's water-based, it's also a little bit easier to take off and correct with a makeup wipe. So let's bring back that handy chart of where I'm gonna place the lines. And I have a couple tips to keep in mind while doing this. Number 1, try to make the thickness of your lines match the thickness of the lines on your cosplay and props. Remember that it's easier to start thin and just make it thicker. And number 2, don't just outline everything. You mostly want this line work at high points and deep points. If you just outline it all, especially like your nose, it's probably gonna look a little strange from some angles. I think it tends to look better if you don't fully connect lines as well, and you'll see what I mean later. The exception to that is your eyes and lips, because of course you tend to outline those in regular makeup as well. I'm gonna start with my eyebrows because it's what I mess up on the most often. I'm using a pretty thin brush to just paint it on, not quite connecting the lines at the top inner corner. And I like to add 1 or 2 cross-hatch lines, but not too many. And I'm cleaning up a wonky brush stroke with some concealer. You can sometimes get away with just adding a bit of concealer rather than using a full-on makeup wipe. Next, I like to add black lines a little bit below my brows. I have pretty hooded eyes, so you wouldn't be able to see them if I put the lines in my crease, but I think it looks good here. Next is the nose, starting with a line on either side of the bridge. I think it looks best to have these lines staggered and not be the exact same length. Then a line on the side of my nostrils, which I'm cleaning up with a makeup wipe. Mistakes are normal. I'm gonna add a line where the tip of my nose starts to like slope up, and usually I only have this line, but this time I decided to add a little line to the tip of my nose as well. I'm not sure if I like this better or not. I kind of go back and forth. Now I'm gonna do my lips, and I actually don't have lipstick on yet because I'm usually snacking and drinking something. I have kind of poorly defined lips, so it's easy for me to overdraw them a tiny bit, and since you're gonna outline it in black, you can honestly probably do this even more. Side note, I'm also adding lashes now because I've started to feel like a little bit crazy, and lashes always make me feel better. Oh, I also forgot to add the line under my eyes. It's not really like outlining the bags under my eyes as much as just the lid itself. It looks more complete if there's a line there, at least on my face. And I somehow got black on my cheeks, so I'm wiping that off as well. Okay, back to my mouth. I'm going to add a bit of concealer to the top of my Cupid's bow and to highlight my chin a bit. I blended a little bit, but again, I wanted to stay pretty high contrast. I have kind of a short mouth and Tannis has quite a pout, so I'm gonna take a medium brown eyeshadow and just sort of extend the corners of my mouth a tiny bit. That'll make my mouth look wider. Okay, now we do a black outline of the lips. I start with each side of the top and I go pretty slowly, building the line thicker as I go. Then the Cupid's bow to connect the 2 lines. Finally, the bottom lip gets an outline. And now I can add some little detail lines like at the chin. I added 2 lines, but I think I generally prefer just 1, at least after doing this makeup like 3 more times. I'm adding 2 lines to my cheeks, 1 at the corners of my jaw and 1 on the bottom of my chin. I prefer not to connect these lines. I think it looks a little too handsome Jack if it's connected all the way around, or like whatever it's called when people do the like really thin beard line, but it doesn't really matter, do whatever you think looks best. Now I would recommend taking a step back and deciding if you need to touch up your makeup, deepen your contours, or thicken your line work. I'm also gonna add some dirt makeup now because Tannis is usually in her lab working on something unhinged, and I have this handy pair of goggles that I can actually see through, and I'm gonna use those to block off the dirt that I'm adding to my face. This is Mayron's Charred Ash Powder. A tiny bit goes a really long way. I'm also using a rougher brush that isn't as dense. The effect is really neat. It's a little crispier on one side than the other, but I'll fix that later if I feel like it. I'm also brushing a bit of the powder onto my fingers and just touching my forehead, which mimics what it would look like if I was like taking my goggles on and off a lot. It won't show a ton since Tannis has bangs, but it will show a little bit, and I think it really completes the look. I'm also doing this a little bit to my cheeks. I'm adding line work to my neck also, but honestly, Tannis has a turtleneck collar and it doesn't really show, so I don't bother with it anymore. This is my first time doing it, so I didn't know it was gonna show or not show. Also, I don't think I filmed this part, but you can set your makeup with a setting spray or powder, though it holds up pretty well on its own anyway. Okay, with the makeup done, now I'm gonna put on my wig, and that means I need to put my chest plate on first just to make life a bit easier. Once I have a wig on, I have like a mana bar that just starts immediately depleting because I'm a huge baby about wigs. They're itchy and overstimulating, so I'm doing this for future me. This wig is from Wig is Fashion, and it looks freaking amazing right out of the box. I didn't cel shade paint it because the color is pretty dark and I didn't think it would really show up anyway. And I'm just styling it while wearing it, kind of bringing a few spots of her hair into little like spiked points. Last minute paint to my chest because like a tiny bit of this shows, so I guess that's fine, but I don't think anybody would notice. And that's it for the makeup and the wig. I think it looks sick. Okay, quick note, I did end up cel shade painting the wig. Once I was informed that the premiere would be outside, I figured it would show up in the sun and look kind of incomplete without the line work. I didn't film me doing that because I did it last minute at a friend's place. But here's how it turned out. I literally just used black acrylic paint and brushed it into the edges of these pointy chunks. Because Tannis's hair is so dark, I didn't really need to be too careful with it compared to when I painted like the bright blue Maya wig. You can check out that video if I remember to link it here. It's a much better rundown of how to paint in this effect. I'm honestly not sure that it showed up much of the time on the red carpet, but it felt more complete and helped me feel more confident in cosplay since I knew I was going to be around some absolutely stunning cosplayers. I think this cosplay turned out really good and I'm super happy with it. It's the first cosplay that I made entirely in Norway. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see how I made the rest of this cosplay, those channels are already up on my channel and they have patterns. This is it for Tannis until I make some wings and shoot her siren version, but in the meantime, I think this turned out pretty good. If you have a couple extra bucks to spare, please consider supporting me over on Patreon. It really does help me a ton. I share lots of progress photos. I actually post there way more than I do on like regular social media. Okay, I'll shut up now, and until the next video, stay crafty. Thank you so much to my supporters on Patreon, especially my top tier patrons, Ricky Rod 33, Mike D, Andrew Leo, Grant Valentine, Robert Reyes, Turner, Nips 86, Mikkel, Josh M, Shottenwolf, and Adam Trubiano. Thanks!